Greetings everyone. I want to offer you a practice today, still in the yin tradition, but this one is to give you an increase in energy. Typically we think of yin as a very relaxing practice, which it can be, but a lot of times when we're feeling a little sluggish, kind of dragging around, last thing we want to do is go for a run or hop on a bike or do some vigorous workout. So this is going to be a way to give you some energy by releasing maybe some stuck patterns, some stuck energy within your body, within your tissues. Prop-wise, I think a block will be very helpful today. If you don't have one, some suitable replacement like either a really firm pillow or even a big thick book that you could throw a towel or a blanket over. But we're going to actually start seated today with a little bit of breath work called Kapalabhati, which is also sometimes called the breath of fire. It looks a little silly, but no one's going to see you. You'll only see me doing it. And we're going to do it 3 rounds. We're going to try to do maybe 20 breaths through each round. And the way it works, excuse me, is that you take a deep breath in, and then the exhale is going to be a sharp exhale through your nose, and you pull the belly in on the exhale. So it would be like, that's the general gist of the breath. It could also be good to have a tissue or 2 or 3 handy. So we'll start with our hands on our knees. And we'll turn our palms up, like, give me some energy. Take a deep breath in and out. 2 more times like that. And if you like, you can bring one hand to your belly. Inhale and go. Gives you a little buzz. Next one, we're going to do arms kind of like little sort of goalpost arms. Again, we're going to do 20. Last round, see if you can bring your arms up like this, thumbs pointing sort of towards each other. A little bit of a head rush, maybe better for you than coffee, although you can still have the ritual of coffee. We're going to do one pose standing called the dangle, and it's just basically a standing forward fold. Now, if you are tight in the hamstrings, you can certainly have your knees bent and you could do your dangle that way. You can also grab a block and have your hands on the block. So feet are going to be about hip width apart, and we're just going to fold over the legs. It also gives you a little bit of an inversion. I'm going to get my timer where I can see it here. So as you hang over the legs, again, there might be a bend in the knees. If you can't get hands to the floor, if you don't have a block or don't want to use the block, you can take a hold of opposite elbow or bicep. And maybe just nod the head a little bit. Maybe a little shaking of the head, no. You've been in it for 30 seconds, maybe some of that bend can come out of the knees. If you want a little bit of movement, maybe just for 3 or 4 breaths, you kind of sway the body side to side. You might even walk the fingers over to one side for about 3 breaths. And then over to the other side. We'll come back to the center. 45 seconds here, just right down the middle. You'll be nice and rosy cheeked when you come out of this. then we're going to take our feet just a little bit wider and turn our toes out for a squat. So we're going to bend the knees. If you're really tight in the hips, this could be where you go. If you have a block, you could put that underneath your sit bones. Otherwise, you just bring the hands inside your legs here and just kind of hang in the squat. It's, this is a great exercise for these hips and low back. If you're feeling kind of tight or sluggish in these hips, you could also hold onto a counter and drop down and do it. I hated this pose for so long, and now I've really kind of come to dig it. We're not going to hold it as long as that dangle, though. Just about 20 more seconds, actually. And after I said 20 seconds, I almost immediately regretted it and wished I'd made it shorter. And then we're going to work on falling. So bring your hands behind you and just lean back into your hands and come down onto your butt. We get so dramatic about the falling part. So we're going to come into a hip opener called deer pose. I love this option if pigeon is not a friendly pose for you in other practices. This is a great alternative to do because it's a little easier on the knees. If you get into the shape of it though and you find it's not working for you, then feel free to come onto your back. I'll talk you through that one in just a second. But for deer, we're going to bring the right leg in front. And our right shin is just going to run parallel to this long side of our mat. Left leg is just off to the side. Now I like to keep my knee and hip in line, but I tend to bring this back foot, this left foot, a little closer to my butt so that I don't tend to clench into those glutes so much. Then you can either just stay right here if you're already feeling it, or you could take a turn to the right. You might keep your left hand on that right knee and just twist to the right. This could be where you start with it. If you're like, I don't like this pose, then come onto your back, do thread the needle, right ankle on left thigh, and hug that left leg into your chest. But this is another pose that for years I resisted, and just maybe in the last year or so that I've really started to love it. And just kind of keep checking in that you're not rolling this hip forward or clenching this glute. So you could stay in this shape, or you might bring both hands to the outside of this thigh, and you might even come down to your forearms, elbows. Sometimes I forget that I'm recording this and I make the audible sounds. Sorry. No, I apologize. You're about halfway there on this side. We're going to work a few poses today that have two sides to them. So kind of keep in mind that you want to somewhat replicate the experience on both sides. You might have to modify on one side. This side tends to be a little bit more cooperative for me. I'll show you my modifications on the other side. Less than a minute here. I always feel like this kind of looks like you were like walking on like a slippery sidewalk or something and you just kind of ate it and you're trying to get back up with your dignity. Thirty more seconds. Now, because this is a practice today about increasing energy, we're just going to kind of move from pose to pose. We're not going to really settle into that rebound moment until we get to the very end. If you took this twist with me, go ahead and start walking your way back to the front. You'll need to lean a little bit to the right so you can swing this left leg around and this right leg off to the side. So it's that same sort of setup. Left shin is lined up with your mat. Right knee and hip are in line. Maybe you draw that right foot in a little closer. So again, this might be where you start. I tend to run a little bit tighter on this side. Or right hand on that left knee. You take a little twist to the left. I'm probably going to have to hold this one for a little bit longer like this before I go into a deeper expression of the twist. I know I've mentioned this before in other practices, but there's some schools of thought, both in yoga and in like body work, massage, rolfing, that your right side tends to be your analytical, your problem-solving side, whereas your left side tends to be, excuse me, your more emotional side. And this is sometimes the side where we hold, grudges, grievances, etc. And sometimes that's all you need to know why the pose is harder on this side. All right, I'm going to try and go into the twist with both hands off to the side of that left leg. Not super comfortable, but it will get there. And if you get to a point in the pose where it's like, yeah, this is just not comfortable, back up a little bit. Remember, these yin poses are not intended to be a test of endurance. If you wanted to come down onto the forearms, you could do that. You're at that halfway point. Again, just kind of scan that you're not clenching these glutes, that you're not hunching up the shoulders, or clenching your jaw. About 30 more seconds here. So if you walked over to the side, let's start making our way back to the front. Then we're going to lean into that left hip, draw this right leg forward, maybe send out both legs, give them a little shake here, a little rocking in the hips. Excuse me, our next pose is going to be a pose called side seal. And this is a open side body opening pose. If you're familiar with our regular seal, that's a back bending pose. So this one we're going to do on our side. If you feel a little tight, you can keep your legs bent, kind of stacked on top of each other, and maybe bring a block under this elbow. And this could be your propped up position right here. I'm going to go straight legs. And I'm going to start on my elbow. I may go deeper with it. I'll give you the option too after we've been in it for a few moments. I like to keep my left hand out in front here, just kind of keep me from toppling over. So we call it side seal, but to me it looks like 70s album cover. Like I think every singer had the 70s album cover side supine pose. All right, so you've been in it 30 seconds. If you want, you can take your your right hand off to the side here and straighten this right arm. Now that is going to kind of hunch your right shoulder up to your ear. You might kind of sink into that. I don't particularly like that feeling from my shoulder, so I'm going to stay on my elbow. And I'd like to take my chin and just kind of bring it towards that right shoulder and tip the chin down just a little bit. So I also get a little stretch in the back of my neck. You know, there's a good chance if you're using this like in the middle of the day to kind of give yourself a little energy boost. You've been looking at your phone a lot, and you know, we do this weird positioning of our head when we do that. And so there's a good chance that the muscles at the back of your neck are feeling a little bit on the tight side. And we're halfway there on this side. You also want to kind of make sure that you're not rolling back or rolling forward. You want to stay somewhat in the middle. If you straighten that right arm and you're getting tired there, come back down onto your elbow. Less than 30 seconds here. And again, we're just going to move from side to side, pose to pose, just to kind of keep this feeling of energy up, and we'll pause at the end. All right, so we're going to press into the arms, come up. Now you could just roll onto your other side so that you're on your left arm. I don't want you to have to look at my butt for 3 minutes, so I'm going to position myself this way on your mat, on my mat, not your mat. Remember, you could have those knees bent and a block under that elbow to make it, you know, somewhat easier. All right, position yourself there. Again, right hand in front, just to kind of keep you from toppling forward or back. Oh, I feel it in this side. It's that left side, man. When you're doing poses that are, or practices that are about creating a feeling of openness or a feeling of space, a lot of times stuff will come up for you because, you know, things are just held in the body, and hips tend to really love to hold on to anger and resentment. So sometimes when you're doing some of these poses, situations or people that aggravate you will come up. It's a good opportunity to look at, is that really something I need to hold on to? About at that halfway point here. I swear this side always feels like it takes longer. A little bit more than a minute here. Less than 30 seconds. Okay, so then we're going to push ourselves up again, just for like 2 breaths. Give those shoulders a little roll, a little shrug, maybe a little bobblehead moment. So the next pose is one of my most favorite poses. It's called cat chasing its tail. If you have a cat or even a dog that does that, they might look at you like you're a bit mad. I just got to scoot my mat back a little bit here. So we're going to come back to the left side. Now, there are a couple of ways you can work this. You could work it again with those knees bent, and when you bring your head down and extend that leg, this bottom knee is kind of propping up this leg. We're going to go into it with straight legs, and I'm going to bring my right leg forward. And don't be too caught up with where, let's go ahead and start the timer. Don't be too caught up in where this leg lands. It might land in line with your hip. If you're a little tighter, you might be down here. If you are a little bit more flexible in the hip and hamstring, you might even be in line with your chest. Then you can also bend this knee, grab a hold of that foot, and drop that foot. You don't want that foot pointing up towards the ceiling. It may not reach the floor, but that's fine. So this cat has chased and caught its tail. And I do this weird thing sometimes in this pose. I crack my toes. This is a great pose to do, even if you don't do this whole practice. This is a good pose to do end of your day, you know, you get home or you finish work and you know, it's like 5 or 6 o'clock, but you're going to be up for another 4 or 5 hours. This is a good pose to do. This is a good way to kind of let go of a lot of stuff. And then we've been in this a little over a minute. See if you can start to drop that right shoulder back. I usually let my left hand at this point kind of cradle my head. And I usually look up. I'm just keeping my eye on the timer here. And if you're in any of these shapes and you're like, God, none of this feels good, lay on your back, hug your right knee into your chest, and then just go into a supine twist. Take your right leg over to the left. We have a little more than a minute. Last 30 seconds here. So the first part of this pose will release is that bottom leg. So try not to rubber band it back out. Let it mindfully come back to straight. Then we're going to draw this top shoulder forward. Then we'll draw this leg back. Grunting helps, by the way. And your right leg will feel longer than your left. Let's come on to the other side. Again, you guys can just flip over onto your other side. I'm going to reposition here. Not much to see. Remember, you can do that bent leg version, or take your legs out straight here. So now, I'm going to bring my left leg forward. Weirdly, this side works a little better for me than that first side. You want the foot, the big toe side of your foot on the floor. You're not trying to put the sole of your foot down onto your mat. I like to get here first for about 30 seconds before I start adding in the other things. So then maybe at this point you bend that bottom, that bottom leg, sorry, hit my plant. Take a hold of it. And you want to just try to drop that foot as far down as you can. It may not go all the way. And then the last part would be to maybe drop that left shoulder back. So we end up in like a twist, a chest and shoulder opener, a hamstring stretch, an IT band stretch, a quad stretch. And I really think you have to hold this for like at least 2 minutes to get like all the great benefits from it. So if you're doing it on your own, set your timer for like 2 minutes on each side. A little more than a minute to go. And in that last 30 seconds here. All right, so first part we'll let go of is that bottom foot. Again, just try to mindfully re-extend your leg. Then draw this shoulder forward. Oh, then we'll drag that leg back. Yeah. Then we're going to come onto our backs. And as you come onto your back, hug those knees into your chest. Maybe a little happy baby pose here. We're going to do a little bit of an inversion. This is where that block is going to come in handy. If you don't have one or you don't have a replacement for it, you can do this without the block. But you're going to take your block low setting up underneath low back and tailbone. You don't want it so high up that your butt is kind of hanging off the edge of it. And then we're going to bring our knees over our hips. And this could be it for you right here. Or you can send those legs straight up. A little bit of space between the feet. Maybe you point and flex and roll the ankles around a bit. So one more inversion. Good way to get energy back into your being is to get a little inversion going to kind of reverse that blood flow. If you want it to be up against a wall and do your legs up the wall, that's a great pose to hold for like 2 to 5 minutes. But this is good for the blood flow, the lymph fluids. It's said to boost your immunity. Back in the days when I worked in an actual office setting, I would sometimes go into the storage closet and put my legs at the door and keep that job very long. I'm going to do a little less than a minute here. About 20 more seconds. Let those knees come back to the chest. Return the feet to the floor. Lift up your hips just enough to get that block out from under there. Give those knees a hug. It's about 3 or 4 breaths here or in happy baby pose. And we're going to come up to a seated position. We're going to do a twist. Nothing really deep, really. Just find a comfortable cross-leg position. Left hand over to that right knee, right hand behind you. 10 breaths in this twist to the right. Let's do 3 more. And we'll let go of that twist. We'll take it to the other side. Oh, yeah. And as you come back to center, maybe switch that cross of legs, other leg in front. This is going to be the moment where we sort of feel the echo of our practice, of our poses. This time go palms down on your knees. Let your eyes close. Let your attention land on your breath. And try to be only in your breath. You might feel little sort of buzzes and hums throughout the body, or maybe you created some space. As you're ready, feel free to open your eyes. I hope that this practice serves you in some way and maybe helps get you feeling back up and energized here. It's a good practice rather to do to counter the more relaxing practices. If you're a big yin practitioner, do a pose like this or a practice like this once in a while just to kind of keep everything in balance. We try to find that balance between yin and yang. But I hope that you have a great day, and I hope to see you again on the mat. Namaste.